All right. Is it reportable to OLAF for noncompliance? So again, depending on what the history is for this particular pair, I would say that we would certainly call OLAF about this. It's a non-human primate. We would ask their opinion, and again, depending on what was going on in this particular case. And is it considered a suggestion for improvement or mandatory for correction by ALAC? Again, we don't make that decision. We would certainly be looking into this. The IACUC would know about it and would set up some corrective actions. We had a bunch of questions. Of course. Okay, so we had a bunch of questions that were how extensive was the examination? Was there significant head trauma that caused this that was more than originally detected? Was there any exertional myopathy involved in this? We don't know. Again, we don't know how extensive the physical exam was. Should more monitoring have been performed than what was recommended? Was there a record review, including, the behavioral records of these animals? Was there a behaviorist evaluation? So there's a whole bunch of other things that could be done with a corrective action. So did we give you a good non-answer on that?
No, that was great. So from a USDA perspective, and I get questions about this one quite a bit because there's an expectation to meet social needs, but at the same time, there's language in the regulations that primates should not be co-housed if they're not compatible. And this scenario is not citable. The reason why it's not citable is because when it comes to compatibility and assessing compatibility, that needs to be done in conjunction with actual observations of the animals. So it can't be one of those scenarios where we had animals that were fighting and, we have people in there 2-3 times a day doing husbandry and doing research activities, and they didn't notice anything when they were in there. That's not considered actual observations of their compatibility. And then it also needs to be as directed as by the attending veterinarian. And so both of those things occurred in that scenario. So from a USDA perspective, that's not citable.
From an OLAW perspective, it would not be reportable if it was a single event. Okay. If there was a repeated occurrence and there was serious harm or death, then we would really want you to call us and talk it through with us so we got a sense of what was going on with your program. We would hope that the corrective actions taken would be to identify causes and hopefully modify groups or pairs based on further investigation of what was going on with the behavior of the animals. That's primarily if it was repeated incidents of animals being harmed or killed because of the incompatibility issues.
So I picked some wording here from one of our FAQs. It says the staff responsible for the day-to-day management and oversight of the social experience of the research animals should be well versed in recognizing aggressive and affiliated behaviors of the various species in their care to provide rapid identification and any necessary intervention. And you guys kind of talked through that. You had a pretty good explanation of what was going on in there, what you looked at upon the death of the animal. So I would agree with what you said. And then there's more wording here. The Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee or comparable oversight body and veterinarians should periodically review the strategies providing social housing or other social experience to the animals of the institution to ensure conformance with the guide. And then this almost goes without saying, but we never want to have an animal that's in a social experience have injury or death, but sometimes that happens as we're trying to meet their needs.
Okay, case study 5. As part of a new research direction for a macaque mother-infant bonding and development study, the investigator submits an amendment requesting approval for 6 weekly sedations of the macaque mothers with required 8-hour periods of separation for the nursing infants.
This is very similar to the second case study. We felt also that this is something, since it's an amendment being submitted, Nothing has been done yet, so there's no like action having happened yet. So the IACUC, it would be up to them whether or not to approve it. We feel they would not likely approve it. It could be a Category E situation from the infant's perspective, from a pain and suffering standpoint, not being addressed. And so we don't think there is a citation involved or a noncompliance involved or even a correction action involved, but probably the veterinarian would want to sit down and discuss with that investigator the sort of psychology involved and the history of those kinds of studies and Harlow and all that stuff. So that's kind of where we ended up on it.
So from a USDA perspective, this is not, the activity itself would not be citable if it's approved by the IACUC, because again, they have the authority in terms of whether or not they feel like the study justifies the activity. However, there might be additional considerations under 3.81C1. That's the one that requires special considerations for infants in order to enrich their environment to promote their psychological well-being. And then also there might be considerations under 2.131B1, which is handling, that that says that animals need to be handled in a way that minimizes distress. So those might come into play depending on how the separations are conducted and how the infants are cared for while separated from their moms.
So, not reportable if IACUC approved, but are there refinements that could be considered? And this is where the veterinarian and the IACUC needs to get involved. And is it really necessary for that 8-hour period of time for those infants to be separated? Are there other ways to make it happen? The timing of the sedations, do they really have to do 6? Okay. Are there surrogates? Are there things that the animals could be given to help them manage the separation period? Visual or tactile access to the moms possibly during the separation, or is that based on the science? Is that not allowed? As I said, it's really, this comes back to the discussion between the IACUC, the veterinarian, and the PI to really get to the nitty gritty and refine the study to the best welfare of the animals.
So my short answer is ditto to what Pat and Gwen just said, and this is the wording that really, as your table said, is, you really need to understand what's going on with the study here, understand the needs, the scientific needs, understand what alternatives might be possible to meet the scientific outcomes while still optimizing the welfare of the animals, both the mother and the infant.
Okay, case study 6. The veterinarian has placed several overweight dogs on an exercise program involving daily treadmill walking using positive reinforcement. The dogs are pair housed in large runs, more than twice the size required for individual dogs. Table 6.
In this, it is not subject to citation by USDA, and it's not reportable as noncompliance because there is no noncompliance. And there is no suggestion for improvement or mandatory by ALAC. However, what we discussed is, did the veterinarian consult the PI before putting the dogs on the treadmill? Because it may have interfered with any study that was going on. It's possible that maybe the program needs to have some kind of a feeding protocol if they've got several overweight dogs. And they perhaps need an exercise SOP, and perhaps the IACUC should be informed about what the veterinarian is doing, not for approval, just for information.
Thank you. So from a USDA perspective, I agree it's not citable. There is language in the regulations prohibiting the use of treadmills to meet the exercise requirement. But these dogs being